On the field,
my name is Paul Rennick, percussion designer and caption head.
I'm Jamie Thompson, visual designer. Welcome to Rhapsody, the 2005 production for the Phantom Regiment.
As you can see, extremely hot night out, actually delayed because of impending thunderstorm, so it was a little later, more exciting later at night.
We had always kind of had a joke about, would we be cursing ourselves by using umbrellas? I don't know that it rained on us all season in a show, so when we had a rain delay in finals, it seemed eerily appropriate.
The main musical material was from American in Paris and Rhapsody in Blue. And this introduction just shows snippets and little tiny vignettes of little parts of each of those. We're basically introducing the characters and building up to the first big horn entrance.
I think when we met for the first time, the designers, which is Paul and myself, and then Adam Sage as the color guard caption head, and J.D. Shaw, the brass arranger, along with Dan Farrell, the program coordinator, and Dan Richardson, we wanted to do something that was kind of fresh and different for the Phantom Regiment, but it still seemed, since it was symphonic music, it still seemed very much in idiom for us. I don't think any of us could have anticipated the kind of response that we would get to the program, so it was great.
I think the music was lighthearted and yet serious enough that we always got credit for it, and I always thought that people reacted because they like to recognize what they hear.
When we first started talking about what the show was going to look like, we didn't immediately come to this idea of doing multiple costume changes. We knew that we wanted to, do something that represented the period. Adam worked with Tommy Keenum from Band Hall to sort of put together what ended up being these 4 iconic images of women in the 1920s. Then we added a guy to the whole thing. There was John right there, and that just gave the show a whole different feel and look.
A lot of these piano melodies from the original really lend themselves well to the front ensemble, and gave us an opportunity once again to use recognizable material to transition from one section to the other.
Visually, what I was just trying to do here is, we introduced all these visual voices and musical voices, kind of the characters of the show, and then we all come together here at the end. And John really caps things off there with the rifle and the hat and the black gloves, which was a costume addition the day of quarterfinals. John's on the bus on the way back from the guard field and slices his hand open when the bus stops, and 19 stitches in his fingers. So there was a lot of in the parking lot trying to rework all the things that he couldn't do with his left hand, like toss a rifle and do things with various partners. And it was interesting and a little scary, but he did a phenomenal job that weekend.
Interesting the way we use soloists throughout the show, starting with the vibraphone, moving to the trumpet, and then really handing to John. Big moment here, wonderfully scored by JD, complemented by the body movements.
In this section of the program, John is kind of playing the field with all the girls, kind of a challenge, if you will, between the sections of color guard and John. Again, some of that stuff reworked the weekend of nationals to sort of accommodate his fingers.
And one of the things I think us as a staff spent just a huge amount of time with in rehearsals were all the tempo changes and accelerandos. I swear we have never done a show with more tempo changes. And here a really great moment for the tubas with the sabers in between. We've focused primarily 3 or 4 parts of the show really featured the tubas.
I wanted there to be a lot of interaction between the color guard and the horns, and this production being largely a tuba feature, it made sense to kind of pair up the sabers and the tubas of that moment of the show, which was such a strong moment, a great opportunity for the girls to do something in character.
There's so many great melodies. I mean, so many of them. I think it was really fun to work with the design team to paste them and glue them all together and make one coherent production.
I think the thing that was probably the most daunting is, like you'd said before, taking a classic piece of music and making sure that it was relevant for 2005, which was a huge challenge for us.
That part of the show was a lot of fun for us. I think it was really clear. The audience always enjoyed it. And a real challenge for us here. The accelerando, not only in the front ensemble, but in the entire corps. We spent a great deal of rehearsal time trying to get this to sound and look right.
There's John and Lindsay, and then blocked by Victoria there. Really just wanted to create this huge stage for the color guard. At the same time, kind of trying to take the open space for the guard, and then in concert with, or in contrast to, depending on when, just these big, open, curvilinear forms for the horn line that really sort of just represented how beautiful this music was. That horn choreography by Michael James, one of the guard choreographers, was one of my favorite parts in the show.
And here comes another great moment. I think we all, actually JD and Dan really talked about trying to get the sound of the old Stan Kenton band. And I think we did a really good job. This big hit was supposed to really capture that sound. And I think it's one of my favorite musical moments in the show.
You can see here we have John and Victoria sort of working in these opposite circles from one another, searching, coming together at the end.
And then this transition, I mean, I felt like we were really clear as far as the design of watching the couple. And then it smoothly and seamlessly leads to the next section, which was the beginning of a percussion feature. And one interesting story about this is we actually changed this part of the show in the middle of the season. And we were somewhere in California, and I went to a Goodwill store and found some old shoes that would look good on Gene Kelly. And right next door was a dance supply store. I bought some taps and put the taps on the shoes, and here you go.
This was probably the biggest change that we made in the show. We, I think, took out about 40 seconds of music, and felt that we really needed to present John and this interaction between John and the girls more fully developed, add more character to the show. And so we were able to do that and use the percussion to feature all of that.
And the traffic jam starts, trolley bells, a little bit of a chaotic moment leading to one of the biggest hits in the show and one of the most memorable melodies out of the music that we picked.
We originally, this was not backfield, that section, until I think a couple weeks before Nationals, which I thought was great because then it kind of punched up this section too. You got the feeling that everything was moving forward and building in excitement.
And people make comments about the style of the corps changing and being a little different this year. I immediately think of these two sections that we start going into a swing style I think it was really appropriate and unexpected for the fans to see.
And now we're off to the races.
Yeah, definitely a fun section to rehearse. A lot of velocity in the music and the drill. And the arrival point is the big swing hit.
The first time I saw these headdresses, I had forgotten that they were going to be out there, and I was way up in the stands, and it was like, it took my breath away from all the way to the top of the stadium in Denver.
A little bit of anger here, leading up to, possibly the single biggest moment of the show, which was the main theme.
You got to give them a classic Phantom Regiment wedge at some point, so this seemed like the best place for it.
I always felt too that no matter what we did, you could always see John, and you could always clearly see the intent of how the visual related to the music. It just was really clear, and a real pleasure to rehearse some of these sections all summer.
This section for the color guard was such a wonderful feature for them, and the colors were amazing. And no production of American in Paris would be complete without a kiss under the Eiffel Tower. And I tried to blend a little Phantom Regiment chevron motif in there as well.
Yeah, the music was programmatic to the actual kiss between John and the girl, and then the corps pushes them out of the way and takes over musically, and then they return back together.
I think we all held our breath every time John and Victoria did that hat exchange, and it was perfect every time.
And this was a great opportunity just to stand still and kind of resolve the whole show. Very emotional, and crowd reacting.
The crowd response made this season so special for all of us that were involved.
It was very memorable, I think, for the members and the fans. I think we had a great time as a design team. I think everyone was on the same page, and we feel like it really came through in the show. It was a great time.